We're continuing with our share on Mareh Yaakov, and as with every week, we're going to begin by talking about something that was in Parshat Shavua and try to apply what we've learned to that which we've just read. We read Matzot Maseh this week, and we have a singular opportunity in Matzot Maseh, because this is the only appearance in Torah of in the 5 books of Moses of 2 different notes. One is called Yerach ben Yomo, and it looks like an upside down etnachta, and the other is called Karnei Para, and Karnei Para looks like a Tlisha Ktana and a Tlisha Gdola, both together on the same word. So we're going to first of all try to define what these words are, and then we're going to define perhaps what meaning they'll have, and then we'll look at the words that they are applied to and try to understand what's happened there. So Yerach is the moon, Ben Yomo, a day-old moon. So if you look closely, that's sort of your just new budding crescent of the moon, and we're elevating or finding some significance in that. And Karnei Para means horns of a bull, horns of a cow. And again, it just certainly has that appearance to it. So I think that's more of a descriptive term.
Do cows have horns, by the way?
Very tiny ones, or not at all. So we're talking about the land that was going to be given to the Leviim around each of the Arei Miklat, each of the cities of refuge. And we specifically say that they have an area around the city of 1,000 amot, of 1,000 cubits. And then we're also going to say that you're going to measure around the city from the east side 2,000 amot. And the Gemara asks, okay, well, we measured 1,000, and then we're going to measure 2,000. Is the 2,000 included in the first 1,000? So is it a square? Is it a square around the city of 1,000? And then we measure another 1,000, and we get that bigger square. But quite clearly, the Gemara says that no, it's not 1,000 and then another 1,000. It's 1,000 on the inside, and then another 2,000 around that. So the Leviim had an area for fields, and then an area for animals and livestock and so on. So the question is, how do these notes affect those words? And we find a single commentator who comments on this, and he tells us that this is actually talking about the rules of whether you can do Kiddush Levana, whether at the beginning of a new month you wait between 3 and 14 and 3/4, 15 days, and any time during that period, the first time you see the new moon, you make a blessing about God's power over the universe. And the ceremony is generally not done on Shabbat, because we're afraid that you might, if you wanted to go out and see the moon, you'd go away from the light of the city. So you might actually break the Tchum Shabbat. There's a certain amount of distance that you're allowed to travel from a city in order not to break Shabbat. And if you go beyond that, then you're really not supposed to walk that distance. The commentator who I saw mentioning these specific notes said that this is an exception to that rule of 2,000 amot for Tchum Shabbat. He said that if you were in one of the cities that the Leviim were in charge of, then you could go not only out that 1,000, but the 2,000 extra, so you could go a total of 3,000 in order to see the Yerach Ben Yomo, the new moon, and to make Kiddush Levana. So this is an exception to the rules of Chum Shabbat. When we look up, unfortunately, my grasp of Zohar is not what it should be, but Zohar specifically teaches something about Karnei Para being related to two of God's names, and the purpose of Kiddush Levana is not to praise the moon, but rather to praise God's mastery over nature and to realize that all things in nature are reflected light like we get from the moon, and to say even when we see reflected light, we see beyond that and we see to God's mastery. So the purpose of Kiddush Levana is you see the moon, you say the blessing, and then in fact some people have the tradition of not looking at the moon anymore, because the moon is not your focus. You're not praying to the moon, you're not doing anything to the moon. You're trying to recognize what's behind the reflected light that you're getting from the moon. So we're seeing the Shekhinah in the brand new moon, and we have in this case the ability to, in fact, override one of the rules of Shabbat based on the notes that are presented here. So Yerach Ben Yomo and Karnei Para.
Cool.
And
that's very cool.
we will not come across those again in Chamisha Chumshei Torah. We will come across them again in some of the books of Nevi'im. Most commonly, the one that everybody else will hear is the one in Megillat Esther. So maybe when we get to Purim, the week before Purim, we'll talk about Yerach Ben Yomo and Karnei Para as they apply to Haman and the tree that he appropriated. We will turn off the tape for a moment and we'll